right, we're live. We've got Zoom going on. We've got coffee going on. We've got Patty going on. She's right here next to me, so I want to let her say a few words.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to, again, our 14th edition. I can't believe we're here, but we made it, and we do all this for you. So I hope you guys do a lot of business, and welcome. We're really happy to have you all.
Okay, guys, so quick news and notes before we get started officially with our panel, which will feature a very special MMFMer who's not with us today because he's hanging out in Jersey, Matt Stein. But before we get to that, last night was our opening reception. We had a great night of receptioning and screening, and there was popcorn. The popcorn was a hit, Patty, by the way, so
really?
Thank you for that. Oh, yeah.
All right.
I hope that's coming back tonight.
Of course.
That's really good. And saw some great work, and now we're here bright and early to get started with our first panel of the day. What's in your package? That sounds different just depending how you say it. So it has different meanings. But this is always a fun way to kick off the event with some esteemed panelists talking about creative development in terms of creating your package. That's super important when you're pitching nowadays. I'm not going to get too into it because that's why I brought these four experts here to tell you all about it. So I'm going to quickly just introduce them, and then we'll have a special introduction by our good friend Matt Stein, who is currently the head of development for G-Unit Film and Television. So immediately to my left is another MMFM veteran who has given some incredible master classes and now has a top-selling book. Karen Hall is with us. And then next to her is her partner in crime and our resident writer and VP of development at the MMFM now, Mr. J.M. Garcia. And then I definitely want to give a very strong round of applause for a brand new MMFMer who's joining us for the first time, even though I've known her for a long time. She's fantastic, a TV producer and executive, also the director of development for VIX, Carla Gomez. And a guy who is not new, but newer, and really an interesting dude. Joe Menendez, who is very fortunate that he's here. He's in the middle of post-production for an incredible movie that's coming out in the fall. So he's taking some time away from his editing duties to be with us here this morning. So welcome back, Joe Menendez. All right, and then live from the Jersey Shore, we have the one and only Mr. Matt Stein. Go ahead and kick it off, Matt.
Hello, everyone. I'm so sorry I cannot be there today. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. I feel like I'm in a Michael Bay movie or something with my background right now, only that we're in slow motion. I wish that I was there with all of you today. I had some meetings with the boss in New York City the last few days, so I've retreated to the Jersey Shore. And I'm here now coming in live to you guys this morning. I've been in the rooms, I know the scenario, and super excited to be here and speak to everybody.
Awesome, thank you, Matt. So before we send you off to your private virtual meeting, so this, if any of you guys have a pitch this week with Matt Stein, it's going to look exactly like this. I hope the American flag stays there. That'd be kind of cool. But Matt, just give us some advice, especially since you're on Zoom, in terms of just from a buyer's perspective, what are you looking for? What are some general pointers you can give to the audience in terms of putting together a solid package and pitching, and then particularly doing that on Zoom as well?
Yeah, totally. So, look, the world is changing on pitching on Zoom. And, versus the pandemic, it has become a real thing. I mean, frankly, we do all of our pitches on Zoom with only occasional exceptions. And I think where we've all gotten, we're doing this on Zoom right now, is very proficient in doing it And the one thing I would say is just a blanket statement, and I'm sure you'll hear more from the other panelists, is rehearsal is real. And just like you're performing a play or doing any type of presentation, we drill the rehearsals. So we don't take anything for granted. And of course, it's the fine line of feeling over-rehearsed or overly robotic and feeling sort of like more natural and human. And we definitely need to still feel that way. And it should almost feel unrehearsed, but we really do drill it and make sure that no one's talking over each other and everyone's sort of hands off from one person to another seamlessly as we go through the Zoom. The other thing we do is, depending on what we're pitching, we usually have some type of visual to show. So that could be a great deck. That could be even some decks are just completely 2D. Others are absolutely interactive, where we click on a trailer or a sizzle wheel or something like that through it. Then the ingredients. Some of the main ingredients that we need is number one, as all this time, a great story to tell. And that story should feel something very organic, but also feel new. And of course, there's a million different versions of these stories that we've heard over the years, but we're always looking for what is the unique spin to the story that you're telling. And this is an overused development word, phrase, but it has to justify its own existence. You're basically telling them not only your story, you're basically telling them why it needs to exist in the world. Why they should bring your child in for adoption. And that's really key. Now, in some cases, like we do them scripted and unscripted. So for unscripted, we have a great concept, we have a great sizzle wheel and deck, and we have a great production services company that has a track record of doing this attached. For scripted, we will have a great showrunner, a great either like EP or co-EP level. Usually there are exceptions. We will have them do the pitch, and that's for television. Writers, obviously, for film. And then we usually try to look for some type of additional attachment. So that could be an actor, that could be a director, that could be financing, financing. That could be some additional element above and beyond the actual writer and story. And of course, last but not least, but you do have producers, and we still mean something out there in the world. So obviously people are looking for the non-writing producers, obviously know what they're doing as much as possible. So hopefully that helps with a little bit of a 30,000 foot overview with pitching in this world and what people are looking for.
Awesome, thank you, Matt. That was very well done. It's almost like you rehearsed that.
Very good, Jose. Very good.
Sorry. I gotta do it every year, Matt, at least once.
That's good.
So thank you, Matt. So what we're gonna do now, I'm gonna switch off my Zoom so you can get ready for your private meetings, which are gonna be happening in just a few minutes. So if anyone does have a meeting with Matt now, go ahead and check into the meeting table, and you'll be able to Zoom one-on-one with Matt. Thanks, Matt.
Great, thank you all. Hopefully I'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're Mattless, but we will continue with, as I mentioned, Karen Hall. Karen, I don't know if you want to stay seated or you want to come to the podium, up to you. But for some of our new MMFMers, just going to give a quick and brief intro of yourself, and then give us some pointers and tips for basically what is an effective logline and one pager, which I like to call the logline the haiku of the movie business, right? It's like getting it to its basic elements.
Yes. I like it better when you introduce me, because I'm not good at singing my praises. But I've been in television for a very long time, and I worked on many shows. I started on MASH. I worked on Hill Street Blues and Moonlighting and Northern Exposure, and a show called Live Fly Away, which is wonderful, that probably no one has seen, but it was created by David Chase, who created The Sopranos, so he was one of my mentors. I worked on Roseanne, and the show that was on with her called Grace Under something. Was it Fire or Pressure? Okay. I had a Hill Street Blues script called Grace Under one of those things, so I get them mixed up. But anyway, I've been doing that forever. I've done movies and miniseries. I've done comedy, I've done drama, I've pretty much done everything there is to do except animation. That's about, it. So I've been in a million pitches and sold a million things, that most of which are in a trunk in my house, but I've sold many pitches, so I know where I speak. So a log line and a one-pager. To me, the shorter it is, the harder it is to write. So I despise writing these things. But there are rules for doing them right. And the biggest mistake that people make in a log line is they don't tell you the full story. So if you pitch something, most log lines that people who don't know what to do and pitch are the first act of whatever it is. Because they think that the log line should leave you, wanting more, but the log line should really be close to what used to be the TV guide thing. It's like, when you show somebody the log line, you want to tell them how your story starts, what's in the middle, and how it ends. So you don't want to leave them hanging. You want them to go, oh, okay. And it's just to have a quick version, so they can look at it and they can read the log line. And, so a buyer can look at it and go, we've got 12 shows like that, and throw it away. So you just want to tell them what your show is in as few words as possible. You should do it in one sentence if you can, and 2 sentences if you can't, and take out every single word that doesn't belong or doesn't have to be there. And obviously you want to make it sound exciting, so you want to use active language, and just make it as non-boring as you can. The one page, I despise writing the one page, but it's another short version of what your story is. You should tell them everything that's in the log line, but you should flesh it out. And the number one thing in anything you use to sell something is don't be boring. Don't be boring for a nanosecond, because these people cannot stand to be bored, and if they are bored, they think your idea is bad and you're gone. I've always been lucky because I can't stand to be bored, so I write so that I'm not boring me. But you want to think about that when you go over that your story that's precious to you is not precious to them. It's here comes another person with another thing they want to sell me, and I've already heard 1 billion. So don't give your story too much credit because it's your baby, because it's not their baby and they don't feel about it the way you do. But just try to make it sound exciting. The one-pager is a sales document, and that's why I hate writing them with every cell of my body, because I'm not a salesman. When I was on The Good Wife, I had a guy who wrote the one page for me. I'd say, here's what my episode is, and he'd go through and go, on an exciting evening, this and this and this, and boom, and I can't do that, so, but you have to. So you either do it or you find a friend who can do it and make them do it. I think that's about all there is to that.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Karen Hall. All right, so JM, do you want to add some color commentary to that?
Okay. This is my riff on Karen said.
No, closer.
Oh, closer. It's kind of, all right. This all falls under the category of lessons learned the hard way.
Oh, yeah.
And very early on, what I learned that was the way to go was that the reality's changed, and now I have to sort of be at the way that it used to be plus, which means the one-pager now has to be filtered through a very sexy, very glossy pitch deck. So the words are the same, but now you have to have exciting graphics, and you have to give people a look and feel for that project, what it means, because one thing that I learned, and I was having a personal conversation with Matt, he said, I get something on the order of 10 pitches a day, which means 50 pitches a week, which means 200 pitches a month. You do the math. And on the one hand, the buyer wants to buy something great. On the other hand, he has, or she has, a giant stack of stuff. And they're looking for the least excuse to whittle it out and get it down to a manageable number. So if your title has a typo, gone. Your pitch could cure cancer, but if there's something that a person can whittle it out and throw it out and get it out of their stack, they will do it in a picosecond.
They're looking for a reason to, say no. When you come in the room, that's what they're looking for. And so, you know, you gotta work harder than you would have if they were just wanting to buy everything that comes in. Because what they want is to find a reason to say, get rid of this one.
Yeah. And the way you get to a yes is when you eliminate every no. This one has a, you know, and one of my favorite ones, and Karen and I were talking about it, is when somebody hands in a physical script and you put all 3 brads on the 3 holes, you're yelling to the industry, I'm an amateur. I don't know the secret code.
Yeah, that one's going right in the trash.
That's going unread.
Yeah.
That's gonna become a firelight.
And actually, if you're handing in a hard copy, it's probably going in the trash anyway.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the other thing is, if at all possible, edit yourself a sizzle reel, which has to be, the ones that I've had success with have been 2 minutes and under. We just got a deal memo on a particular project that we did, and the sizzle reel for that was 1:59. There is another one that we're hoping to get another deal memo from, and that's 1:20 something. It's just to give people the look and feel, the vibe of what you're trying to sell them. And the purpose of that is not to get the reel, to get them to buy the thing, it's the reel for them to look at the deck. And the deck is for them to say, yeah, I'd be willing to talk further with you. Just assume that nobody's gonna say, this is a great idea just off the top and I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah.
Ideas are, Karen?
Yeah, ideas are worthless. I say this every year. Here I am again to tell you that ideas are worthless. If you don't have the faculty to turn it into something that they can do something with, then your idea is worthless. It's like, you know, Joe Schmo comes off the street and goes, I've got a great idea. It's blah, blah, blah. And Matt says, I love it. I want to see a reel in the pitch deck. Well, you got to know how to do a reel in the pitch deck. And if they like the reel in the pitch deck and by some miracle they're going to buy it, you got to be able to write and produce it. And, you know, so you have to have the skills to do something that's valuable to them. Because the greatest idea in the world is worthless. And one of the main reasons is because everybody sitting at this table has a lot of ideas and we want to do our own ideas. So, you know, they don't want to do your idea. So, yeah. Tell your idea to everybody except Disney. They will steal your idea. Ask Joe. I've sat and watched that happen. Joe and friend Ethan created a show at MMFM, you know, over cocktails at the bar. And it was a great idea. And so they did all the things and went and pitched it to Disney. And it was on the air about 6 weeks later, not by Joe and Ethan. And Disney's idea is we can afford more lawyers than you can, so they don't care. Everybody knows they steal, and they don't care that everybody knows they steal. That's a little public service announcement. But what you're trying to do with pitch, which has always been true, is make them see the show. And when I was starting out, I could only do that with words, so it was really hard. But they need to see the show in their mind and think, A, I would watch that show, and more importantly, I would love to go to a cocktail party and tell people that I developed that show. So that's what you're aiming for. And so you're lucky now because you can have a pitch deck and a reel and you can show them. I've seen pitch decks where I went, I want to see the show. You know, where is it? And that's what you want them to be thinking.
Very well said. Thank you, guys. And so now, as I mentioned, I want to bring in a new MMFMer, Carla Gomez. So Carla, since you are new with us, just tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your background in the industry first.
Hi, I've been working in television since 2008. I started doing production for Nickelodeon in Miami. There was the Viacom International Studios in downtown Miami for a very long time. Did 7 series there, mostly in Spanish, but also a couple in English. And they were very successful, so we did like 500 hours of content at least in that studio. That gave me a lot of like production experience because I was on set and basically just doing end-to-end production for a very long time. And then afterwards, I went to work for HBO Latin America, where we developed and I bought some shows to be produced in Argentina and Colombia. And now I am currently at VIX. We are the streamer for Televisa Univision, and we launched 2 years ago. And it was a big challenge because it was launching a streaming from zero. That meant we had a pipeline of over 60 projects to be done in the first year. So yes, that's been probably, this past 2 years I've received most pitches than ever in my life. We've also produced very quickly, mostly in Latin America. Right now we produce most of our shows in Mexico and Colombia, also in Spain. That gives me like a lot of exposure to different cultures and production companies around the world. And yes, so I'm here to talk a little bit about how we buy projects, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, hopefully we'll buy some projects. That would be great. Okay, so Mr. Menendez, let's talk to you for a second, because you're a little different kind of peg for this whole, because you're a director, but you're also a producer, right? And so talk a little bit from your perspective creatively, what you're looking for in terms of how you pitch, how you are pitched, right? And how you present both yourself and the project as well. I don't know if you got all of that.
I did. Hi, everyone. Everybody here has covered the mechanics of what you need for a pitch, really well. What I start with is I need a good writer, because I write, but I'm a director who writes. But I surround myself with actual writers who actually know how to do that in ways that I can't do it. Like, I think I'm a good writer, but then when I work with actual writers, I'm like, no, this is what a real writer is. So first and foremost, there have to be, writers. There has to be an idea. But again, they've covered how the decks work. Yes, you need a video, you need a deck. I think I look at it from a different perspective, because as a director, it's not just the idea that people want. They want to know, can I work with this individual? Can I work with this person? Because that's one of the things that they're instantly assessing. Yes, the idea, the characters, the story, but it's when I think of pitching, I always sort of reference late night talk shows. And if you watch Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel or whatever, when somebody goes on to that show and they start talking about whatever movie's coming out that weekend, they're doing a pitch. They're doing a pitch for the American public to come see the movie this weekend. So it always starts the same way. It always starts off with banter. A little bit of banter, a little bit of joking, and you get ingratiated with the talk show host and with the audience. Everyone's laughing. And at some point, it segues into like, tell me about this movie that you've got coming out this weekend. And then they will pitch the movie in a very quick way, just like Karen said. In like a minute or two, they're able to give that TV guide log line. I always call it like the elevator pitch. You get into an elevator with somebody who can buy something, and you hit the thing, and you got the elevator ride. And you got to pitch the entire idea before they get to their floor. It's really done well on these talk shows, and if you really want to see how a pitch should go, just watch these talk shows. There's a lot of celebrities that really know how to do it well, and it is rehearsed, as Matt said. So for me, it's always about, and that's exactly how pitches start. A pitch will start inevitably with small talk. It'll start inevitably with, let me get to know you, exactly what we've done here. Tell me about yourself, tell me about what you're doing. So instantly, the buyer's instantly saying, oh, this is a person that I like, this is the person that I don't like, or whatever. And then eventually, and if you can make them laugh and you can joke and you're relatable, then they're instantly making the judgment in that moment. Okay, this is somebody that I like. I hope I love their idea. Because I kind of look at it slightly different. I don't think they're looking to say no. I think they are legitimately looking every time somebody comes in. I think everyone's like, oh God, let this idea be good. Because they hear so many bad ideas, and every person comes in, they're like, oh God, let it be good, let it be good. And I think I may have given some of these pitches where they know within, I think, and Carla, I don't know, you get that, but like, I think executives know within 30 seconds to a minute if it's going to be something they're not going to buy.
Nobody wants to go and waste half an hour of their time.
And they know, and so you've got a couple options in that moment. Like if you kind of get the sense, like if you're able to read the room, either you pivot so that you're like, how do I hook this person who I've just lost for whatever reason? or you just sort of finish your pitch and go, live to fight another day. But I look at it from, as a director in particular, because once this thing gets sold, so like the movie I'm doing right now, it was slightly different than a pitch because it was a script. And I had to pitch my take. So I had to do a little song and dance. So they sent me the script. I didn't have the job. But they wanted me to do it, based on everything that I had done. But I didn't have the job, so I had to go sing for my supper. And so they sent me the script, and I put together a video. And I was going to bring it, I was going to show it, but then I was like, it's just so out of context. And anyway, but essentially, to Joe's point, it wasn't 2 minutes. It was like 2.5 minutes is what it was. But it was a great 2.5 minutes. Not that extra 30 seconds was
A little over the top.
bravura editing. No, but I showed this video and it was over Zoom. And what I like about Zoom pitches, by the way, is I've gone on many pitches in person, and inevitably, even though you have your pitch rehearsed, you forget something. You forget a detail, and as you're driving home, you're like, oh, I didn't say the thing that I was going to say. And like, what's great about a Zoom pitch is that you can put Post-its all around your screen, and like, okay, I got to cover this. And as the pitch is going on, you can just take the Post-its down, and you don't forget anything. But I did this video, and in the video, I was able to show exactly the tone that I was going to take in the movie, exactly the kinds of visuals. I was able to reference other visuals. And then in my case, because I'd done all this stuff with special effects and scope and stunts, I was able to show stuff that I had done that I was referencing, and then I would do something like this. And in that 2.5 minutes, they were able to basically see the movie that I intended to make if I got the job. And a week later, they called and I got the job. And I've done it like that. Like there's another thing that I'm developing with my writing partner John, who's up there. We wrote this thing and we have it set up at Will Smith's company, and it was the exact same thing. It's actually based on a true story, and that Luis and Carla, I don't know if Carlos Gutierrez is here or not, but they brought me this true life story, and I loved it, and I brought John on and we wrote it. And so when we went to go sell it, we found this Ann Curry interview with the people that had taken part in this true life event. And we basically took the Ann Curry video and I edited it down, and I was able to show it to them, and they were able to see like, oh, this is a real thing. Anyway, these things are really effective. So, but for me as a director, it's always about, here I am, this is who I am as a person, this is somebody who you're gonna be dealing with for 13, 14 hours a day on any given day, and then post-production and all that. And here's the idea, and this is my take on it. So it's slightly different than what these guys are doing, because when I'm pitching myself as a director, it's me pitching my take on things. But when it's a show, I do the exact same thing when I'm coming in as somebody that's selling a show. The exact same thing that Karen and Joe and Carla have talked about.
Wow, well, you took that question and just ran with it.
Yeah,
it was like you hit every note.
I'm very long-winded.
No, but that was actually really good. Well, I think one of the most interesting pieces of advice, and not obvious, like you said, was watching talk shows and
That's
seeing
great.
how the celebrities and how, let's say, the directors or whoever,
Yeah, Joe and I are stealing that.
Yeah, that's actually a really, I prefer Graham Norton because there's like wine and bourbon involved
Yeah.
also,
Yeah, right.
which is kind of fun. So Carla, let's talk a little bit beyond the pitch itself. What are you looking for in terms of something you would want to produce or pick up in terms of personality?
Can I say
Yeah.
two things about what Joe said? The two things. One is the thing about whether or not they want to spend a lot of hours with you is at least 50% of your pitch.
Yeah.
And the other thing was probably something I forgot. Crap.
You need
Oh,
post-it
crap.
notes, Karen.
I was going
Post-it notes on the screen.
to. I was going to reiterate something else you said. When it comes to me, I'll come back.
Yeah, I want to reiterate a couple of things too. So first, I think when you're pitching, honestly, yes, we want to connect with the person on the other side of the screen. And yeah, sometimes I've seen two things. One, reading, which is like a no-no. Please don't read because it just makes it boring. First, we are also human, so it's good to say hi, like you said, the small talk, it's important. Not dive into it immediately. And nowadays, when you work in corporate, you usually have Zoom meetings every half an hour. So it's nice to have like a little chat in between. Number two, we definitely, we don't buy ideas, we buy good executions. I always say this to the writers and producers. because everybody has great ideas, and that's, to be honest. And a good execution means a solid production service company if you don't produce, a solid writing team, at least one showrunner or two people on the writing staff, or a director. Yes, and definitely a producer that really gives you the confidence that they can execute on the idea, because this will be at least a year or 2 year relationship, and it's important to trust the other side. And as far as visuals, I love visuals. I think they're amazing, and nowadays with AI, I've seen some incredible decks that describe a scene in a visual, which is awesome. Also, a mood reel is appreciated. A minute and a half, 2 tops. Yes.
Come
Put it on the chat.
director's cut.
Yes, please don't try to stream it. It will start a technological battle, and we won't listen to it. Copy paste it on the chat. I think that's a great advice.
No, that's great. Thank you, Carla.
Yeah. And then as far as when you're doing a pitch, I think we like to hear the big picture first. So the logline should be the main contradiction of the story, the main conflict. Just keep it big picture, and then dive into the details. Another tactic that I've noticed it works, at least for me, is the emotional connection to the main character. And I love it when, especially directors, they start narrating the first scene after you have told me the bigger picture. It's so imagine opening sequence, and then they get you into the mood, and you're oh cool, now you got my interest. Now what happens next? So those things I think work. And what was the question? I just wanted to tell you my take on this.
Yeah. No, you touched on.
For real.
Next
Yeah.
time, we'll all bring our computers.
Yeah, but I think you touched on a couple important things, which is, obviously execution is extraordinarily important, right? So like I said, a lot of great ideas in the world, but do you as an artist or as a producer, as a professional, are you able to execute on that idea, or do you have a team in place around you, hence package, right? To be able to execute on that idea at a professional level, right?
And in Spanish language, having an actor or an actress, honestly, it's really important nowadays. It's one of the hardest things right now in Spanish language content is to find available great actors. They're all busy. There's something happened. I'm sorry. Something happened in Mexico in the last couple of years where everybody's busy. So
Right.
if you bring me an attached actress or actor, that's selling.
No, that's great points. Karen, did you remember your thought?
I remembered my things.
Great.
I have 3 things. One is, where Joe was talking about the banter, you have to have really good radar for when banter time is over. You cannot go over it in a second. You've lost them if you do. So, and that is because, number 2, there's this thing, I went and pitched something in New York, and then, went well in the room, and then we all went out to dinner. And the honcho introduced me to somebody who hadn't been in the meeting and said, "You'll like Karen, she's OOU." And OOU means one of us. And there's this invisible, in the banter time when they're getting to know you, they want to know, are you OOU? Are you somebody that is going to, get with the rhythm of what everybody else who's working on it? Or are you somebody who's going to say, I don't know, I was offended by that last thing. So, that's what you're trying to convince them. You want to convince them that you are easy to work with, and then you want to be easy to work with. And you can have a 2.5-minute video if you are Joe Menendez. If you are not, then you can have an hour, or you're going to have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Great points. Joe Garcia, any commentary on what you've just heard?
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you what I use as my little sort of memory device when I'm talking to someone. And I came up with this because that's how I remember it, because I never thought of putting Post-it notes, which is, I use this device, it's radio controlled pilot, helicopter, airplane, which stands for research, connect, passion, and hook and ask. Meaning that if I'm pitching to Carla, I'm pitching to her today, I really should have spent the last week researching what she's worked on, what she likes, so that the banter is useful. Why? Because the second thing is connect. That's you know Joe Menendez, I know Joe Menendez. And now it's not just loose fill in the blank banter time. Now it's an actual connection we're developing. And once we have a connection, I have to convey to her why I'm passionate about this project. By the way, if you're not passionate about your project, don't pitch that project. People can smell lack of passion through lead. Don't do it. You're wasting your time, and you will be crossed off Carlos list forever. And as a parenthesis, maybe I'm sensing that this is not the story she's looking for, but if I make a connection with her, she might say, what else do you have? Or maybe you can Zoom later, and we might come up on something 6 months, a year later that'll work. You have to have a hook. This is a sort of thing, and you'll never know. It was the first blind pitcher in baseball history. Oh, I didn't know that. That got their attention. And finally, you have to have an ask. And it might be, if it's an elevator pitch, Carla, would you be willing to do a Zoom about this later? Would you be willing to read the brief? No, something. And then go from there and build on your strengths and try to eliminate whatever weaknesses you have. That's my song and dance.
Yeah, that's great. Carla, I wanted to ask you, are there any specific nuances about pitching Spanish language versus English language? Obviously, in terms of specific formats, I guess the telenovela being the most obvious one. Just tell us if there's any differences there and what to look out for.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely in terms of budget, Spanish language content is less budget because we stream in Latin America. There's pesos, it's not like here. It's a different industry. So that's something to consider. I think researching the platform you're pitching to, because different Spanish language streamers have different type of content. So it has happened to me that sometimes people come to the pitch and I'm just not the right buyer. And I think it's important for people to realize that soon, and then just turn the meeting around and ask, so what are you looking for? And then we can talk, and maybe if we have we get along well and we like your passion, we'll definitely set up another meeting. The formats that we're doing in Spanish are usually 8 to 10 episodes per season for premium content. Now for telenovelas and that other longer formats, nowadays what's working is 40 episodes to 60 episodes. That's what I've seen in other streamers. In VIX, we don't do that longer format. We try to focus on the premium content, because in open television in Mexico and nowadays, honestly, it's still very popular. It's in Colombia and in Mexico, people still watch broadcast. So those longer formats are reserved for the broadcast audience, and then people want to pay for more premium content in their language. And one of the things that we're looking for, it has to be hyper local stories. So if it's a Mexican story, it has to be very Mexican. If it's Colombian, very Colombian. That's what tends to work. And in terms of genres, it's in our DNA. Latin Americans, we love drama, we love melodrama. We're not afraid to talk romance. We love romance stories and difficult love triangles and big villains. It still works. It's in our DNA. People love it. And yes, we also do a lot of comedy. Comedy is big in Latin America. Those are the two main things that we're doing. And here and there, we throw some action or something different, but the one thing we don't do is sci-fi. That's reserved for the Americans that can do it better and with bigger budgets. Right now, in Latin America, it's really hard for us to do that.
That's great. Yeah. So I do want to save a few minutes for Q&A, if you guys don't mind. We're just gonna take a few questions, unless you guys have any. Joe, do you have anything else to add before I move it over to the audience?
I will say one thing is, when a pitch is going well, oftentimes what will happen is they'll start asking questions, and this is good. And if questions start getting asked after you've done the pitch and you've done everything, but sometimes the questions are not exactly what you just pitched. So in other words, the buyer is thinking of a need that they have internally, or they just have another idea, and they start to ask you questions, and if they're asking you questions, you have to be sort of Johnny on the spot and understand, oh, they're asking this question for a reason. There's a reason why they're asking this. I've heard, there's a friend of mine, true story, he wrote this fantastic script that got shopped around all around town, and he goes and he sits down with a gigantic producer in LA, and the producer, like, had never met this guy, sits down with him. Within 5 minutes, the producer says, I love your script, I think it's amazing, I think we can get Tom Hanks. By the way, this is a producer that knew Tom Hanks. We can get Tom Hanks, I think Tom Hanks would love this movie. And my buddy, in 5 minutes into the meeting, says, yeah, no, Tom Hanks is too old. We cannot be Tom Hanks.
You negotiate that later.
The exact reaction that everybody here, this person, like the meeting ended, and my friend, who was a name I will not mention, couldn't understand. He's like, I don't understand, Tom Hanks is too old. And we were all, when he told us all, we're like, dude, you say Tom Hanks is awesome, you say Tom Hanks is amazing, and like Carla said, when you get to a point where you're actually making a movie, Tom Hanks is gonna read this and go, I'm too old for this. But let it go, let the process play out. Anyway, if they're asking you questions, be ready to pivot and never be negative. never say Tom Hanks is too old. You go with it, and it's always a great idea. And if you can think on your feet in the room and start to banter and play tennis with this executive, and like he or she will say, well, what about this? And you're like, that's great. What about? They're getting a window into what the creative process with you is going to be. And I think that goes a long way, because if they see like, oh, great, I can play with this person, I can go back and forth, it's going to go a long way.
Also, you want them to get invested in your idea.
Correct.
So if they have a little idea that you say, oh, that's great, then they're invested.
And you can invest, and not just say that's great because that's just lip service, but if you take their idea
that's great,
and start to mold it and then apply it to your pitch.
Right.
Now we're talking. Now we're bantering.
If they say Tom Hanks, you don't say he's too old. You say, did I say the protagonist was 20?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, he's 50.
100%. You keep going. You don't even mention it. You go like, what a fantastic idea, and here's why. And picture Tom Hanks when he was 20. Anyway.
Because you also want to know that there's a creative collaboration. You want to know that they're open to suggestions, and that doesn't mean that we're gonna want to make like something different.
Yeah, we're
but
not
that
going
you're
to camera
open.
the next day.
Right, exactly. And we sometimes a lot what happens is they bring a certain format, and it's maybe we see it very long. Like the story structure is not like for a, let's say, 3-season series, but we see it as a mini series, and we start asking like, oh, would you mind doing this in 6 episodes? That means that we have a slot for that. We think it's important, and if we think you have the capability of like telling the story in a different format, we're gonna tell you, and we would like for you to be open to it. Otherwise, it's not gonna work.
Yeah, good.
I did that exact thing. I had a novel that was out and was a big, huge deal, and they wanted Tom Cruise to play my 49-year-old protagonist, and I said, he's too old. But guess what? That hasn't been made yet.
Quickest way to not get made is to say no. But yes, I think what you guys are pointing at is something very important, which is picking up signals, right? Because pitching is, you mentioned telenovelas and romance, it's like dating, right? And if you're not picking up the signals, you're not getting where you want to be. So I think those are very good points. So we do have time for a few questions from the audience. If I may, don't pitch us anything in the question. If you can just, try to, if you are thinking about your own specific pitch later on, try to see if you can quickly frame it into a more general, concise, logline type question. So we'll go first to the back, and then we'll come back here. Back in, I think, Rita, is that you?
My question is that if it is at the initial stages and you're still working on the budget and things like that, and it's a multi-country kind of national thing, how specific can you give them a latitude? Like, this is, if we get these kind of actors, this is if it's going to be the great actors of our choice, or things like that. I mean, how specific will you?
It sounds like if you haven't pitched them, you don't want to go in telling them how they're going to do this and in what country and how, and you don't want to do any of that. You want to tell them the story. Here it is in 2 sentences.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and ultimately, just to add to what Karen said, it's if you just keep it to character and story, they may tell you, well, have you ever considered shooting, like I did a movie that I pitched that got made, that John and I pitched, that got made, and it was set in Texas. And we're like, well, we're gonna shoot this in Texas, and when we went into Lionsgate, they're like, can you shoot this in the Dominican Republic? And of course, using the mantra of never saying no, I was like, Dominican Republic, absolutely, we can make Texas. And by the way, we did it. It looked like we found places in the DR that looked like Texas. So it's about character and story, and then all the other stuff will sort itself out later.
And we forgot a very important thing that Joe and I've been dealing with lately, which is where it is set. It is set somewhere with great tax incentives. I'm not kidding. Or they're not going to make it.
You just teased our afternoon session.
Oh, sorry.
Karen. So, but that's good. I like that. You guys got to come back to find out where the money is. We'll take time for 2 more quick questions. Joanne over here, and then we'll go to the back. First here and then here.
Those are some great ideas about sizzle reels, but I'm always very reluctant to have my clients make sizzle reels because I'm concerned that they're going to not have anything like the budget that they want to have to make something that's going to look at, I don't know, a $10 million movie or something. I just wondered if you could speak to that a little bit.
Budget of the sizzle reel.
I mean, just make it it's a mood reel. So just take existing stuff that is tonally or the look of what you're intending. So it doesn't have to be everyone, like when you're watching it and you see, look, there's, Tom Cruise in the thing, you're obviously not saying, I'm gonna get Tom Cruise. But what you could do is maybe not show Tom Cruise, but show footage from a Tom Cruise. Everybody knows, like, oh, that's Top Gun. Right. Like if it's a fighter, like it's a Navy show, and you're taking footage from Top Gun, everyone knows, oh, they got that from Top Gun. But you're looking at it and you're like, I understand the tone of what they're trying to do. So it's a matter of just taking footage from existing movies, or as Carla said, you could do AI. Nowadays, like, where things are going and it's going fast with Sora and things like that, you can just make original shots. Like, it's a game changer, all the AI stuff, because now you can do stuff that isn't from any movie, although it's being crawled from existing things. But the idea is that it doesn't have to be anything that you go and you spend $10 million on it. You just have to be able to rip it and cut it together, some cool music, find a cool set of music first, and then cut it to music first. I always find the music first, and then I look for pictures to add to that, is what I would say.
Yeah, we never take literal the mood reels. We know it's just a mood. And I see Tom Cruise in all my mood reels, and I know we can't hire him. It's fine.
Cruise, C-R-U-Z or C-R? Cruise.
And one last thing to add to that is the reel you're producing or want to present to somebody, your goal is to convey and give the viewer the same emotions they would have when they saw that episode or that movie. That's what you're trying to do, is make them feel the same feeling. So you don't have to worry about whether it's Tom Cruise or Tom Hanks, who I heard is too old. And if you are Joe Menendez, you can go to 2.5 minutes. If you're Joe Garcia, you have to stop at 2. There's a hierarchy of Joes, and he's at the 2.5 minute mark.
Great point.
Some people also write a little voiceover, and that works.
Oh, okay, like a narration.
Yeah, and with the image and the music.
I narrate.
Yeah, that's smart. You have a good voice, though. You can do that. So, one more quick question, and then we'll wrap it up.
I thank you for taking your time to share your experience and anecdotes. A quick question, I was wondering if you have any outstanding must-haves and must-do-nots for the pitch deck?
Must-haves and must-nots.
Don't bore them.
Don't bore them. Don't push back on any comments they give you.
Yeah.
Do not push back. I know somebody who pitched the thing, it was going great, and they gave, much like the Tom Hanks thing, well, we see the thing, you see the thing, they see the thing. That's future you's problem. Your immediate you problem is getting out of this meeting with the next step going forward. Don't push back. We're like, no, that's not the...
Now, Joe's concept of future use problem is very, very useful, so take that.
I think for me is go from an attractive visual to a logline to a short story, like a synopsis on a page, and then the character descriptions, very short. Like, I think the deck is supposed to be a teaser into the universe that you're gonna pitch me. Doesn't have to be full of details. When you're doing a million things a day and you open and you see a very small font and just like text, you get like you're like, oh, I don't know.
Font size,
The
right?
buyer, the buyer never wants to see a big black block of text,
No.
so never do that. And you need to write it the way people write poetry. Your language has to be very economical. You've got to be able to say a lot in a very small time, so you have to be really, and you have to work, sometimes I work much harder on something short than I do something long. Because you've got to make sure you have the exact right word that will, move them this far in this much.
Well, I'll
Yes, please.
the analogy that I always use is, imagine you go to a movie theater with a blind person, and the movie's running in real time, and you have to lean in and tell the person what's happening in real time.
Yeah.
So you have to be as concise as possible to say, okay, it's a beach town. There's a guy walking. He's got a shotgun. He's walking into, you've got to, there's no time to be flowery. And so that's the same with scripts, but certainly the same with a pitch deck, with getting out the information as quickly as possible. And then I would say also, a don't is, in terms of your imagery, it can't be something where you look at an image and you're like, what am I looking at? I don't understand. Like, this is so. It's got to be something where, it's like when you use actors' faces, like, this is the kind of character that's gonna be, and you put up, a picture, let's say, of Russell Crowe, but what you're saying is like, oh, it's gonna be, Eddie Murphy, and then I'm like, well, why am I looking at a picture of Russell Crowe? It's an Eddie Murphy kind of. So it's got to be something that there's no math. Like when you see the image, you know exactly what story you're trying to tell and what kind of character this is supposed to be.
No, that's a great point. It's almost like looking at a movie poster, right? And you look at the poster and you say, okay, those are your images, that's the story, those are the people. And this has been, speaking of great people, an amazing panel. We've run out of time, but you guys are awesome.